High in the Indian Himalayas, where the air is thin and the cold cuts like a blade, there is a lake that should not exist. Roopkund, 5,000 meters above sea level, cradled in a valley beneath the towering peak of Trisul. For most of the year, it lies frozen, silent, forgotten. But when summer comes, when the ice begins to melt, the lake reveals its secret. Hundreds of human skeletons, skulls, femurs, ribs, scattered across the shallow water and the rocky shore like the aftermath of a massacre. Some still have flesh clinging to the bone, hair, fingernails, preserved by the ice for centuries. This is Skeleton Lake. And the question that has haunted scientists, historians, and locals for decades is simple, yet terrifying. Who were these people, and what killed them all?
The discovery came in 1942. A British forest ranger named H.K. Madhwal was patrolling the remote Chamoli district when he stumbled upon the lake. What he found stopped him cold. The ice had melted more than usual that summer, and the shore was littered with bones, hundreds of them. At first, panic set in. Were these the remains of soldiers? The Second World War was raging. Had Japanese forces infiltrated this far into India and perished in the mountains? The British authorities launched an investigation, but the bones told a different story. They were old, very old. Carbon dating would later suggest they were at least a century old, possibly much more. This was not a modern tragedy. This was something ancient, something inexplicable.
Theories multiplied like shadows. Local folklore offered one explanation: the legend of King Jasdawal of Kanauj, a medieval ruler who, in celebration of the birth of an heir, embarked on a pilgrimage to the sacred Nanda Devi shrine. He travelled with his pregnant queen, dancers, musicians, servants, a grand procession winding through the mountains. But the goddess Nanda Devi, according to the tale, was angered by their vanity and frivolity in her sacred domain. She sent a storm. A hailstorm so violent, so sudden, that the entire party was struck down, killed where they stood, their bodies left to freeze in the high Himalayas for eternity. It's a compelling story, dramatic, moral. But is it true? Another theory pointed to war. In 1841, General Zorawar Singh of Kashmir led a military campaign into Tibet. It was a disaster. His forces were routed at the Battle of Tibet, and the survivors attempted a desperate retreat through the Himalayas in the dead of winter. Many scholars believed the skeletons at Roopkund were the remains of Singh's soldiers, men who lost their way in the mountains and froze to death. It made sense. The timing fit. The location fit. But there was a problem. When anthropologists examined the bones more closely, they found something unexpected. Many of the skeletons were not soldiers. They were men, yes, but also women. And the bones showed no signs of battle wounds, no evidence of combat. These people had not died fighting. They had died together suddenly, from something else entirely. The first scientific expedition to Roopkund came in the 1960s. Researchers from India and abroad trekked to the remote lake, collected samples, and began systematic analysis. What they discovered was astonishing. The skeletons numbered in the hundreds. Estimates ranged from 300 to 800 individuals. They were remarkably well preserved, thanks to the freezing temperatures and the lake's isolation. Flesh still clung to some bones. Hair remained intact. And strangest of all, many of the skulls showed identical injuries, circular fractures on the top of the head, as if the victims had been struck from above. By what? The researchers were baffled. No weapons were found, no signs of violence beyond these mysterious head wounds. It was as if something had rained down death from the sky. For decades, the prevailing theory was this: the skeletons belonged to a single group of pilgrims who died in the 9th century, caught in a catastrophic event. Perhaps an avalanche, perhaps a sudden storm. The circular skull fractures suggested hailstones, massive chunks of ice falling from the sky with lethal force. It seemed to confirm the ancient legend. The wrath of Nanda Devi manifested as a hailstorm of biblical proportions. Scientists even calculated the size of the hailstones needed to cause such injuries. Cricket ball-sized, falling at terminal velocity, deadly. The mystery seemed solved. Roopkund was a mass grave, a snapshot of a single terrible moment frozen in time. But then, in 2019, everything changed.
A team of international scientists, led by researchers from Harvard and the Max Planck Institute, conducted the most comprehensive study of the Roopkund skeletons ever attempted. They used cutting-edge DNA analysis, radiocarbon dating, and isotope testing. What they found shattered every assumption. The skeletons did not belong to a single group. They did not die at the same time. In fact, they came from 3 completely different populations, separated by 1,000 years. The first group, South Asian individuals, genetically related to modern Indians who died around 800 AD. The second group, also South Asian, but they died 1,000 years later, around 1800 AD. And the third group, this is where it gets truly bizarre, were people of Eastern Mediterranean descent, Greeks or possibly Cretans, who died around 1800 AD in the Himalayas, thousands of miles from home.
The implications were staggering. Roopkund was not the site of a single disaster. It was a place where people died again and again across centuries. But why? What drew these disparate groups to this remote, deadly lake? The South Asian individuals likely were pilgrims, traveling the ancient route to Nanda Devi. The isotope analysis of their bones showed they came from different regions of India, supporting the pilgrimage theory. But the Mediterranean group, they remain an enigma. Were they traders, explorers, mercenaries? No historical records mention Europeans in this region during that period. Their presence at Roopkund is, quite literally, unprecedented. And the manner of their death, those identical skull fractures, suggests they died the same way as the others, struck down by something falling from above. Multiple catastrophes. Same location, same cause. Separated by a millennium.
The physical evidence supports a terrifying conclusion. Roopkund sits in a natural bowl, surrounded by steep slopes. When storms roll in, they funnel through this valley with concentrated fury. Meteorologists have documented extreme weather events in this region, sudden, violent hailstorms that appear without warning. In 2013, a similar storm struck the nearby Kedarnath region, killing thousands. Witnesses described hailstones the size of cricket balls, the same injuries, the same sudden death. Roopkund, it seems, is a geographical trap, a place where the mountains conspire with the weather to create lethal conditions. The pilgrims who died there across the centuries were simply unlucky. They were in the wrong place when the sky turned murderous.
But questions remain. Why were Mediterranean people at Roopkund in the 19th century? The DNA evidence is irrefutable, yet no historical documentation exists. Some researchers speculate they may have been part of a British expedition, perhaps guides or porters recruited from Mediterranean colonies. Others suggest they could have been members of a religious sect drawn to the Himalayas for spiritual reasons. The truth is, we may never know. Their identities are lost to history. What we do know is this: they travelled thousands of miles, crossed continents, and ended their journey at a frozen lake in the clouds. And there, like so many before them, they died beneath a rain of ice.
Today, Roopkund remains a pilgrimage site. Every 12 years, during the Nanda Devi Rajjat festival, thousands of devotees make the treacherous journey to the lake. They come to honour the goddess, to seek blessings, to walk the same path their ancestors walked. They pass the skeletons. They see the bones scattered in the shallows, and they continue. Because faith in the Himalayas is stronger than fear. The Indian government has restricted access to the lake in recent years, concerned about the preservation of the site and the safety of trekkers. Climate change is accelerating the melting of the ice, revealing more remains each year. Scientists estimate there may be hundreds more skeletons still buried beneath the surface waiting to be discovered. Each one a story, each one a mystery. The skeletons themselves are deteriorating, Exposure to the elements, increased tourism, and the simple passage of time are taking their toll. Some bones have been removed by souvenir hunters, others have been scattered by animals or washed away by seasonal floods. Conservationists are racing against time to document and preserve what remains. 3D scanning, photogrammetry, DNA sampling. They are creating a digital archive of Roopkund, ensuring that even if the physical evidence disappears, the data will survive. Because Roopkund is more than a curiosity, it is a window into the past, a reminder of the dangers our ancestors faced, and a warning about the power of nature.
What makes Roopkund so haunting is not just the number of dead, but the randomness of their fate. These were not soldiers prepared for battle, not explorers equipped for danger. They were ordinary people, pilgrims seeking spiritual fulfillment, travelers on a journey. And in an instant, without warning, they were gone. The skeletons show no signs of suffering. Death would have been quick. A hailstone to the skull, unconsciousness, then the cold. In some ways, it is a merciful end, but it is also a reminder of how fragile we are, how little control we have, how quickly everything can change. Skeleton Lake, Roopkund, a name that has become legend. The 2019 DNA study answered some questions, but it raised many more. Who were the Mediterranean travelers? Why did they come? What drew people to this deadly place again and again across 1,000 years? Perhaps we will never know the full story. Perhaps some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved. But Roopkund teaches us something important. It reminds us that history is not a straight line, that the past is stranger and more complex than we imagine, that people have always traveled, explored, and died in pursuit of something greater than themselves. The bones at Roopkund are not just relics, they are witnesses to faith, to courage, to the terrible beauty of the Himalayas, and to the enduring human desire to reach beyond the known world, even if it means walking into the storm. The lake still freezes every winter, the ice still melts every summer, and the skeletons still wait, silent and patient, for the next traveler to stumble upon their resting place and ask the question that has echoed through the mountains for centuries. What happened here?